Nuclear or not, the federal opposition will meet today, and pardon the pun, as they head full steam towards nuclear. It has everybody talking. Joining me is Fitzpatrick and Co-Advisory Special Counsel and Labor Advisor Bruce Hawker. It is a bit of a pun, full steam ahead, but look, it's almost, well, it has. It's not cost of living off the table at the moment.
Well, it has. It's a big shift in the political direction that the Liberal Party's trying to take the upcoming election. It's a big gamble for them. If it plays well for them, then they're well and truly in the game. If it doesn't, then they've got a lot of ground to make up and a lot of egg on their face. I think the real problem that they've got with the sale of this policy is that it'll go down pretty well in regional Australia, and we've seen some polling to suggest that already. But in the cities, those teal seats where the Liberal Party has to win, there's a real problem for them because the teal voters and those electorates that the Liberal Party can't win government without getting won't support it.
And the other thing with the teals is that if they've got a little notebook going, they won't like the stance taken on The Voice, and this is piling up. So we've got Paul Fletcher coming on later, one of the shadow ministers, and he's in an interesting position because he went to the wire with a teal last time. He won his seat, but this is going to be a hard one to sell. Very
difficult. I mean, it'll be very interesting to hear how he responds to this because people in the electorate will be looking hard at what he says now. It's an electorate which has become more marginal for him as a result of the abolition of the seat of North Sydney, a teal seat that will now be moved into Bradfield to some extent, his electorate. All these things are really challenging for them. There's a superficial appeal for nuclear, and it can sustain coal energy and carbon energy for a longer period. And I think there's some support for that in regional Australia. They don't like wind farms and solar and so forth, but that's appealing to your base. To win an election in Australia, you have to find ground in the middle of the political spectrum, and that is a very hard place to find if you're Peter Dutton with this policy.
Meanwhile, Anthony Albanese has a stack of challenges himself. The polling came out this week. Peter Dutton ahead as preferred Prime Minister, so he's got some work to do.
He does. He has to come out and convince the electorate that this is an unnecessary development as far as the electorate's concerned. It's going to be not going to be ready in time. It's going to be too expensive, and we've got renewables and we've got transitional energy like gas to get us through to fully renewable, and we've got a level of urgency about it because we can't wait until the 2040 or whenever when these nuclear power plants would be online. We actually have to be dealing with this problem right now. So he's got quite a complex argument. I don't think he can trivialise it, and I don't think he will trivialise it. But there will be people out there. We've all had a bit of fun ourselves, with the three-headed fish and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But the serious issue really is, how does this affect people's cost of living in the short term? That's where I think Dutton's going to try to take it.
What about the visit of the Chinese Premier? How did it go?
Well, I think on balance it went well. I mean, we saw those rather ugly protests out the front. We saw attempts to block a Chinese-Australian journalist who'd been held in detention, one of Sky's journalists, which is all juvenile and...
Doesn't come as a great surprise, does it?
Not really. And, it's all about trying to control the media in a way that just tells the stories about what China's like. Having said that, it was only a few years ago that the Chinese ministers weren't even taking the calls from ministers in the Morrison government because of how he deeply offended the Chinese leadership with calls to investigate the COVID outbreak with investigatory bodies going into China, something which was always going to be very unacceptable to them. So the Labor government's actually taken them a lot further down the path of restabilising our trading relationship with that country.
Yeah, finally, 2 points clear Joe Biden in the latest poll against Donald Trump, but we're a little bit done for time. But is this showing that conviction is hurting him, Trump?
Well, it may well. The early indications seem to have been that people who were less locked into Trump were now moving away from him in significant numbers, up to 21% of soft Republican voters, independently inclined voters, were now voting, or were not now voting for Trump. So he's got some work to do. We've got a big debate coming up in this coming week. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, it is fascinating. It is a soap opera.
Love it.
Talk to you soon, Bruce.
Thanks, Tim.